Welcome, welcome everybody. I'm so happy that you're here on this very cold day, at least in Colorado, I know all over the country. And we are excited today to have Tim Taravella join us. I am really beside myself. As you all know, this podcast has been going on for a couple of years. We call it Growing Good Humans. My name is Laura Barr. I'm the owner and founder of Emerging Educational Consulting. We provide mentorship for students from the beginning to end of the college application process. And this podcast is really rooted in this idea that the more we know, the more we can serve our kids. And I am really curious and excited about my time with you today, Tim. And I want you to take a minute to introduce yourself, but you are the chair of the Rocky Mountain Youth Exchange. And this conversation is really going to be rooted in the idea of the advantages students have when they are engaged in cultural exchanges. So I'm going to let you start talking. First, just tell us about who you are, how you got into it, and tell us all the things.
Sure. Well, Laura, thank you so much for inviting me for this conversation. Hopefully get some folks to join us live while we're doing this, and feel free to ask me questions as we're going along. But then for the folks that are watching this afterwards, I'm sure my email will be shared. Reach out and ask any questions you have for that. I became connected to Rotary Youth Exchange back in 1987 when I was sitting there kind of blanked out as a sophomore in high school. And I heard on the morning announcements, do you want to study abroad? Do you want to be an exchange student? Stop by the library this afternoon. And something just clicked. And so I went and I picked up the application. I filled it out. I'd had no Rotary connection whatsoever before that, and ended up spending an amazing year in Denmark and remaining involved with Rotary International, but also specifically Youth Exchange since then. And to the point where my son, Zach, went as an exchange student from this district here in Colorado from 2018 to 19 down to Argentina, where he now lives full time, going to college and just living his best possible life. It is an amazing program run by volunteers across the region. And it's just a fantastic opportunity when presented to youth to experience the world and to see what another culture means firsthand, and to change their perspective on world affairs and their own personal beliefs about things. And they more often than not come out as the 2.0 version of themselves, and 1,000 times better than they were when they left.
We're so lucky to have you. And I love that you have the experience, and even more, your family has had the experience recently. Let's get nitty gritty for a second. What is the experience? Like, how does it work? And what age should students be doing this? Are we talking freshman, sophomore? How far ahead do you have to apply? Like, give us the whole little rundown.
Of course. So our program runs on an annual basis. Applications are due into the district level on November 1st every year. And then we have a interview weekend, November 15th, sometime that second weekend of November. Applications are available year round from RMRYE.org, our website. You click on the option for exchange programs, and you can download the application. It comes right to you. We have a couple different programs that are available for different age ranges. So the traditional exchange program, when you think of an exchange student, they're away for an academic year. So 10 to 11 months, sometimes even right up to 364 days for the kids that have a blast and don't want to come home. But more often than not, it's a strict academic year. They would be placed, they'd be accepted and interviewed and vetted here locally, and then placed with our international partners into a high school type program abroad, where the language of instruction is in the host language of the country. So students are expected to become proficient in that. And they are placed then with 3 host families, preferably 3, sometimes it's 2. So they get an opportunity to see more parts of the town that they're living in. They'll stay in the same school, but they'll see 3 different aspects to what life in a Danish town is like, for example. We have 2 other programs. One is and so that's the long term. Our short-term program is a great introduction to exchange, and that can be in 2 different models. One is a family to family. So one of your clients here might say, hey, my daughter really wants to go to Italy. She's been fascinated by Rome for years and she wants to go. She applies into that program. That's a springtime application. January, February, they'd be due. And we then would receive the application, vet the family and the student again. And that student would then go to Rome after we matched them up with a family. They would go to Italy, spend a couple of weeks there. And then the Italian student would come back to Colorado with them and spend a couple of weeks experiencing Colorado life. So that's one side of the short term. The other short term is summer camps or specialty tours. My youngest son, Max, who's 19, is going to be going to Egypt this coming July for 2 weeks. It's going to cost $1,300. He's going to see 4 different places in Egypt, totally under the aegis of Rotary, and learn more and more about Egyptian history and culture and all of that. So that's another opportunity. And then the third short term actually runs from 18 to 25 years old. So we're talking about college students at this point. And that's called the New Generation Study Exchange, where we have a woman from Argentina who might be coming up here to Denver. She is a degree in aerospace or in aeronautics and airport logistics. And we're right now working on placing her with a family that can then get her up to Denver Airport and making connections there with United, Southwest, and Denver operations itself, where she would then spend 3 weeks cycling through each one of those opportunities as a professional, as a young professional. She's not working, but she's seeing the real work. So it's a huge breadth, but the general rules for the program for long-term would be, you'd be looking at freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. So it's pretty much your entire high school career. The ages are 15 to 18 and a half. We can, depending on a student's age, we can do a gap year exchange where they finish high school here. They've already applied to college, potentially if that's their plan, and they defer that, but then they can go live in Belgium or Australia or wherever for the academic program. They'd still be enrolled in a high school and still have that situation, but there's no, stick hanging over their head like, oh, I got to pass all my classes. They have a little more fun at that age.
And let me clarify. So you're saying some people will use the Rotary program as their gap program,
yep,
right? Yeah, I love that. And then they've deferred, and then they come back, and that's that we use that model for the different programs that we use. But I'm super intrigued with this. One is when I had a chance to talk to Jim, right? He was like, this is all volunteer. And the expense is very different than some of the gap programs that, in my opinion, have gotten ridiculously out of hand. And can you talk about that, the price and why the prices are what they are and how it all works?
Yeah. So on the price side, the only side we see that on my end is when I'm comparing to our inbound students. And a family, say, with CCI Green Heart from Japan may write a check for $35,000 to participate in an academic year program. Portion of that money is paid out as tuition to the high school. A big portion of that is paid into the program, and then there's some travel fees. Rotary does not work that way with any one of our programs. Our short-term application is $300, and that's it. It covers materials we give to them, training we give to them, and insurance. They'd be on the hook for their own travel, their airfare. And that. For our long-term students on our outbound side, we have required insurance that they'd have to buy. We'd have airfare. And the application, the total fee into the district is $2,100. On average, our students, depending on their final placement, like a kid to Taiwan might end up with an annual expense, for the full program, $8,000 to $9,000. A kid going to Europe may be $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000. There are additional opportunities, their year-end bus trips and cruises up the Amazon and things like that.
Right.
There are additional expenses, but those are, an optional expense. And then the interesting thing, or the great thing about Rotary's program too, is our students who are placed in either direction, inbound or outbound, receive a stipend of approximately $150 US per month paid by their Rotary Club, their host club. That's their walking around money. That's to make sure they can go to the cafe, to the movie, to whatever with their friends. So in some cases, like my son when he was in Argentina, he never spent another dime. He lived off that money, and he's a frugal kid. And we're like, please use our credit card to spend some more money. Yeah, he was fine with it. Other kids, you know what they're like when they're home. They're clothes horses and sure that they're going to buy stuff. They'll have higher expenses themselves. But that 150 is there to cover, the regular entertainment sort of stuff. And then the kids are treated, is our expectation, as family members. So if the expectation of a student who's gone to Finland is their children always, in the house that they've had, their children always make their lunch and bring it to school, so does the exchange student. If they always put $100 into a student's lunch account, they do the same thing for the exchange student. They treat them just like a child of theirs. There's no room and board expenses, nothing like that. If they're going out for dinner and they would normally pay for their kid to eat, they're paying for an exchange student because it's their daughter. I'm still in touch with my host mother from 1987. And she's still my mom, and she's grandma to my kids, and I'm uncle to her grandkids. And we're still in contact. And she never treated me as anything but the son they never had. So that's what this program does. It increases your family threefold, and it lets you see what the culture is like firsthand, and you really get to make some informed decisions for the rest of your life.
Wow. Let's talk about that sense of family, and this idea that you become part of the family. How do you find families, both in the United States, but also abroad? And maybe this may be a way to weave in some of the countries that students go to. But I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of families are like, well, how are families vetted? And is it safe? And those kinds of questions.
100% safe. When problems happen, and I will never say that they don't, problems do arise. And Rotary, even though we are all volunteer, like Jim Johnson had informed you, our number one priority and concern is the health and safety of the student, no matter where they are, here or abroad. Host families are vetted any number of ways, but they're kind of the same globally. There's a criminal background check to make sure we're not dealing with anybody with any sort of criminal background. When I see that here, I see DUIs, I see all sorts of stuff that pop up. Certain things are completely disqualified, and then we just can't use that family. Our overseas partners are lucky in this manner. They are allowed to require that if a family is sending a student abroad, a student from Finland, a student from Denmark or Argentina, wherever, that family has to take in a student. So it's literally a one-to-one exchange. So now that's not all three families, but like when my son went to Argentina, there were 3 Rotary Exchange students in his town, and they each just cycled through the 3 families, months each, and filled in the year because each one of those families had a kid abroad. In the United States, we are not allowed to do that. We are forbidden by the U.S. State Department from requiring a family who sends a child abroad to host a student. We beg, borrow, and steal from organizations like yours, from schools, from some teams when the students are here, from Rotary clubs. The program is not restricted just to Rotarians. It's open to the entire public. So some of the host families may be Rotarians who are maybe retired. And, then that all of a sudden this kid moves in, they're the only kid in the home. But guess what? They can bring them to all the activities. They're not dealing with 3 other students in the house with all these other activities. It might be a little easier. So there's vetting in both sides, the same way. I'll be honest with you, right now we're dealing with a situation in Finland that is less than ideal. The student is reporting that he's having some severe difficulties with his family, that they don't do anything, that they work too much. They're opening a restaurant and they're never around. So he's left to his own devices for far too much time. And that's not good in a place as dark and cold as Finland. So we're having active discussions, right? I mean, just before I started this, right after I finish this, I'll be going back into a conference call about that, to try to find a solution that keeps the student safe, potentially brings him home early, which is not what we want to do, but finds a workable solution. But we also always tell our students to advocate for themselves. If something feels off, if your spider sense is tingling, say something. And there are ear problems that I can help from here, and there are their problems. And we tell the students, most of this is a their problem. You sort it out. You find some solutions. Advocate for yourselves. And we see massive growth in some of our kids for that. But then if they can't handle it, we're there to back them up.
That's amazing. What about school. So they're going to school, right? I mean, isn't that the point? They're going to school. And talk to me about language barriers, and then credits.
Sure.
I've had a couple students who've wanted to do this, and then they go to their counselor and they're like, well, you wouldn't have this credit or that credit, and it drives us crazy. How do you manage that?
Sure. So we tell every student, expect to receive no credit. Be
Mm,
pleasantly surprised when you do. But the first rule is you have a conversation with the counselor and with your registrar at your home school, and you make sure that you say, hey, I'm going on doing this program. I'm going to be doing all of the instruction will be in Argentine Spanish. And I will become proficient in this language. And by the second half of the year, I'll really be actively participating in these classes. I will come back home with a transcript of my classes. And can we work out an agreement in writing, because people retire all the time or move
mm,
schools? Can
yeah,
we get
smart.
in writing that when I come home, you'll consider each one of these classes, whether it's a pass fail or you give me the grade? Because the students come back with a grade report and the metric that they use, because the Danish grading system is psychotic. There are 12 numbers, they only use 6 of them, and it's not the ones you think they'd be. So, and they come home with, here's a key that tells you exactly what those mean. Now, that said, sometimes a student takes it to heart and they actually do try to participate in classes and they get full credit. My son came home from Argentina. He ended up with 2 full years worth of credit because he schmoozed, sorry, I left off the sh. I met registrar at his high school in Spanish, and she's from Dominican Republic. She's like, oh my God, I love your accent. It is so pretty. And she looked at you, oh yeah, you took all these classes. Well, he was there for the end of one year and the beginning of the other, because it's a reversed academic year. He had a summer vacation there. She said, oh yeah, you took 2 Spanish classes and you took 2 English classes. You took do this. He needed to take 1 English class as a junior to graduate early. He
Wow.
was done with all of his Colorado requirements. So that's an option. It's a possibility. It's never a guarantee. Our students who come
Let me
here never.
stop you for a second. I'm going to interrupt you because I want to this. I'm putting my college consultant brain on, and I am trying to think about like really promoting this with my freshmen or 8th graders, right?
Yeah,
Like this would be such an incredible experience. The credit thing has always been a deterrence,
yeah,
but I think that's because people are thinking about the program way too late.
yeah.
Where if you start early on your freshman year and you look at what the requirements are for graduation, then if you stack those heavy at the beginning, maybe even take a summer class or something like that, then you can kind of, have you seen, how do people strategize? Am I on the right track?
Oh, 100%. Some kids take the viewpoint that my son did. He went out as an IB student, came back as he dropped IB 100%. He's like, I can't do that anymore. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense to me personally. But so some students make that decision early, and they say, hey, we've got a girl right now who's a freshman. This summer, she's going to take an extra English class. When she comes back, she'll have her full junior year to do. And we both know Colorado is actually a fairly easy state to graduate from. Strict requirements. You don't meet your 4, English, math, science, social studies, and all that colleges want to see unless you plan ahead. But honestly, every student here through the state requirements only needs 3 of all of those except English. So technically, a lot of kids just kind of like, ooh, I can kind of coast through. If I get some half credits for these, I'm still good to go and can graduate when I come home. Other students will, be a little more proactive. We had one girl who was out this past year who was doing a double enrollment program, an associate's and her high school. She'd already finished all the requirements for the high school diploma. She took 1 extra class while she was away, and the AA program is giving her full-on credit for the Spanish language activities that she did down there.
Wow.
She's already graduated. She's done completely with that. So she'll start at BYU she went December to January, but coming this fall, she'll start up and be 2 years ahead of college. So
Right.
it is an option. So yeah, your younger students, it's a great opportunity to think about it. The older students, as long as they stay on top of it and they actually show some effort while they're abroad and work with their counselor, they can probably get some version of credits.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me interrupt you.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Then I just caught something you said, which was they're going to go into this school, maybe not 100% proficient, completely learning from a different language.
Yeah.
Is that so? Like, you could be just, I want to go to Finland, never have speaking Finnish, and you're going to walk into a school and not know one word of Finnish.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's our biggest challenge. Our American students tend to be a little less driven when it comes to that. The biggest bit of advice that we always give them perennially is start Duolingo, start Rosetta Stone, start Pimsleur, whatever program you're using, start it yesterday. Watch all of your TV shows in Netflix and switch it to Spanish, right? Hear the language, start that acquisition program. Because the more words, the more basic, vocabulary you have when you walk in, the quicker your on-site, acquisition will be, because it'll be through immersion. It's the best way to learn a language. When I went to Denmark, none of what we're doing today existed. I had a little phrase book. I knew zero Danish, but by December, I was dreaming in Danish, because every single interaction I had all day long, except for kids that wanted to practice English, was in Danish. The same thing for my son in Spanish. So it is possible. We've got a girl, who went to Croatia. How many Croatian speakers do you know here? How many Turkish speakers? How, but then what we encourage the students too, while they're here, before they leave, be in touch with our inbound student. So a kid going to Turkey should be going out as often as they can with the girl from Turkey, right? Start hearing Turkish and say, oh, what is Turkish coffee? How can I eat baklava and all that? But then when they go, they'll have had some exposure to it. It won't sound completely foreign. Not going to sugarcoat it. It is hard. They'll have headaches. Processing language, full-time is tough. But your phone is a full-time translator now. The ability to learn faster is right there. So we're seeing that same growth. They may not come back completely fluent, but they can have a basic conversation. But then, like I said, a lot of schools will not even bother trying to give them credit except for English. And honestly, think about this. If they're taking physics, chemistry, and math, those are all really kind of universal languages, right? So they'll get credit for English, and they'll probably get credit, especially if they've already had a year of physics. They'll recognize the problem. They'll then learn the Danish word, like I did, for what that was, and understand the concept. So, and everyone has a basic proficiency for English program-wide. So that's always the default if they have to.
I am often asked over and over, how can students stand out in this college application process? And I think it's getting harder and harder to stand out for a variety of reasons. One, because what is asked of students to stand out is sometimes so extraordinary or so expensive, or, kids are just, these teenagers are just teenagers.
Yep.
I think and so, to go do a big research program or to get an internship in a New York City office as a teenager, and to, have started non-for-profit, or all of these things that some highly selective schools kind of celebrate. I think there is just something about what it says about the character of a student who has the kind of chutzpah to walk into another country, not really knowing the language, and the kind of grit, the diversity of experience, contribution. It's like everything colleges are looking for in one. And then, of course, anybody who knows me is I'm not about getting students to trophy hunt. What I'm up to is providing students with opportunities where they can grow to be good citizens.
Yeah.
And to be a world citizen today feels really brave and really, really important.
Yeah.
So we have a couple things coming from the audience. One, Karen is saying, thank you so much for introducing Rotary Exchange to young people. She says it's the best experience a young adult can have. And then Jim, what kids 15 plus do really well on Exchange?
Oh,
let's
sure.
see, more about why the Rotary Exchange program versus others.
Sure. So, as the committee, when we interview these students, we can very often tell. My wife refers to it as a light or a spark. You know immediately when that student walks in if they're going to do well or if they're going to struggle. And that's part of that interview process, that we try to weed out the kids that might be a little more difficult for them to thrive. This program is going to do really well for a kid who's generally extroverted, that is willing to take risks. We prefer to have a higher than average academic, but we're willing to work with that. So they're not all A+ students. And quite honestly, a lot of our A+ and our super overachieving students are probably not going to look at a program like this for the same reason you mentioned. They're going to lose credit. They're going to lose time. They're going to fall behind their peers. They're going to see this as, oh, this is a year off, right? Even if it's done as a gap year, it's not a year off. There's still, all I can say is, if you want to find a student that has that stands out, an exchange student is going to be a gigantic flag over their head. Like, hey, look at me. Their essay is going to be able to pull from experiences that other kids' essays might come across as kind of fake or contrived. Like, oh, what's the most difficult thing you had to do? And they're going to come up with some, lily-footed answer on that. Exchange students are going to be able to say, hey, I got dropped off in the middle of Taiwan.
Yeah.
I don't read Mandarin, and yet I was able to figure my way around. I lost my Metro card, and I navigated my way back home 4 months into my being in Taiwan. Sweet, that, and then they can have the conversation, or the goofy language translation problems they might have. They're incredibly bright and energetic and wonderful youth. I wouldn't do this program if I didn't really enjoy working with these kids, with these students. They are absolutely amazing. You've met an exchange student, you might just not know it, but the type. When you see them, it just snaps. They're like, this kid is going to jump in both feet. They're going to make the most of it. Something to consider when we send kids abroad. High schools here have all sorts of programs built into the after the extracurricular side of schools. Overseas, that doesn't exist. So if you're super involved in sports or super involved in stage, in theater and all, you have to find other ways to do that while you're abroad. Again, broadening your circle, meeting more people. So it's again finding solutions to keep them involved, and we let them turn it on. They come back so much stronger, personality-wise, experience-wise, ethically, morally. They've grown. When I came back, when my son came back, when all of our students who come back to the U.S., high school's a joke. We're so ready to be done and go right into college. We're ready for that next step. You do what you got to do and get it done. They are going to be so well prepared. My freshman year, first semester, I got a 4.0, while all of my friends were finding out what alcohol was for the first time.
Yeah.
And, I don't have anybody telling me I have to go to class. No, I had already done all that. It was done. I was focused in on getting that degree done. So it turns something on and matures these kids in a way that I don't think you can find any other program that would do that. Any exchange program would do it. Rotary just happens to, do it the best.
That's awesome. That's great. I'd like to, I can't believe it, 30 minutes has already gone by. So much. You covered, no, but you needed to, because we really needed to hear all of that. I think what I'd like to put a plug in just for myself is I raised 4 kids, and we always said yes to hosting exchange families. It wasn't through the Rotary, it was through another program at the time that doesn't exist anymore called Bold Leaders. But I again and again, we said yes, and I had 4 kids. So we added one more to the plate and had that experience. That's right. And I think what I'd like to say is that if your student maybe doesn't have quite the chutzpah to go away for a year, I would encourage families to be the people who say yes for one of your programs, for that, for one of the 3 experiences, because that experience alone could motivate them to be able to have the courage to go, but it also can expose them to being a world citizen in their own backyard, because there's a lot of things you have to think about when you bring somebody into your home. And it is beyond just thinking about what I, as a teenager, need for my own basic needs, which is mostly what teenagers are thinking about. They're wired that way, so that's okay. But to push them in that way. So I'd like to put a push for that.
Yeah.
And is there anything else? Any deadlines coming up we should know about?
No. So right now, if there's any interest in the short-term program, get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Scott White, who's our chair for that. And we're going to be posting a more extensive list of all those summer opportunities beyond the family to family. Those are literally being released minute by minute worldwide.
Is that going to be on your website? Because we'll put that on our community.
Put it up on the website.
Okay.
When that
we'll keep an eye on that.
And then that deadline is very flexible for folks that are thinking about next year. Go ahead and request the application today. You're not going to work on it until the summer, and then it's due to us in November 1.
Okay.
And
that's for the following year, right?
For the following year. So you would be applying for 27-28 at that point.
Okay.
And then if anybody is at all interested in hosting, as Laura just mentioned, it is an amazing experience. You open your home to somebody that you've never met, and they become a family member that you're in touch with for years, hopefully. We're always looking for host families. And that could be, as you said, the impetus to push your student a little bit further and go, oh, yeah, I totally want to be like Teo and go to Argentina. Or, nope, I'm never doing that, but I had a great experience meeting them. And that's great. We want to know both ways. So you don't want to set anybody up for failure by pushing them into this program that maybe they're not ready for.
Tim, I can't thank you enough. You are a man of service in so many ways, and you're really the work that you do makes a difference for so many humans. And thank you. And I hope this is the beginning of many conversations.
I hope so too. I'd love to come back. I'd love to, maybe get one of our students on one day.
I love that idea. Let's just plan that. You tell us, find someone and let's do it. We'll plan it.
We'll make it work.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Okay. Bye-bye.